Welcome back to the 411 Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Larry Csonka, and this is episode 15 of the 411 on Wrestling Podcast. You can follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and of course the 411 Mania site. Please subscribe and share the show around on social media, as we would greatly appreciate it. On today's show, I am joined with my good friend, Jeremy Lambert. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. Long weekend, but I'm excited to be here. I feel like I say that every time. Long weekend.
It was a long weekend, no doubt. I mean, it had a lot of wrestling. We're going to cover today the NWA Crockett Cup 2019 event, as well as the Impact Rebellion pay-per-view. Pair of good shows, I thought. A lot of different things going on, and yeah, it was. I think it was a good weekend overall for the wrestling. I had a good time. I kind of hated that I had to miss the Crockett Cup live, but I enjoyed watching it, so that's good, I think. And you were there live, were you? Right?
Yes, maybe that's why the weekend felt long. It's about a 2.5 hour drive from my place to where the Crockett Cup was being held. So, and I went to the VIP event, which started at 11. So I was up early on Saturday, and that's usually a good sleep-in day for me. I was up early, drove to that, went to the whole VIP thing, sat at a pizza place because the thing was supposed to last until 4, and then the show started at 7, and the thing lasted until like 2:30. So I left there and went to this pizza place and sat there for 4 hours, and they did not have very comfortable chairs at this pizza place. And then I went to the Crockett Cup show, which was a good show, and got home at about 1 o'clock or so. So Saturday was just a long day for me, but it was a fun day. I can't complain. The show was great. The VIP event was really great. The pizza place actually had good food, so it was a fun day, even though it was a little bit longer than my usual Saturdays where I just sleep all day.
Well, that is good. Yeah, I had a pretty productive week last week. I had the latest fitting with the leg, and I should hopefully hear this week about going in and having the official fitting at the place where they make it, and then start learning to walk on it. And if they have to make any adjustments there, they will. And I found out I'm getting the fully computerized knee, which they were afraid the insurance company might not okay, but they did. So I am very happy about that. And then I also defeated the insurance company because my wife is very smart. And when I had the toe amputated and stuff, she had read into the insurance stuff. And I should have gotten some money for it, but we didn't have the one disability package. So she signed up for it. And when I got home, we started the process to get a pretty sizable amount of money. And they did the insurance company thing where they turn you down the first time and said there wasn't enough paperwork. And they greatly underestimated Christie's tenacity and ability to collect paperwork because we collected and scanned and sent in all the stuff from the hospital and rehab center, which was approximately 900 pages of paperwork.
Jeez.
I mean, it was like every vital sign, everything they did. And she sent it in and called 2 days later to double check. And the guy was like, yeah, you're good now. We're cutting the check and mailing it out. And somebody on Twitter joked, and I'm pretty sure this dude looked into like the first 100 or so pages and was just like, fuck it, we're cutting the check. I'm done.
That would imagine how I would think it would go as well. It's just, you see 900 pages of stuff. Once you get past the first few, it's like, all right, I'm gonna assume everything is good here. So they are on top of things. Let's give them their money. Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad things worked out in that way for you. And yeah, I missed you at the Crockett Cup on Saturday because I know if you had the leg or if you were healthy, that we would have been double teaming that thing together and having a good old time like we did at NXT a few years ago.
Yeah, we also did the Bellator show years ago.
The Bellator show as well. That was on Valentine's Day, I remember.
Yes.
It's weird.
At the Bo Hanglays Arena.
Yes, that's right. Had to get bow anglers at the bow anglers arena. This is at the same arena that the NXT show was held at, so I was at least familiar with the arena.
Yeah, the Carrabba's Arena. ROH does shows and TV tapings there occasionally too. That's a nice building.
Yeah,
It's a good like mid-sized building, and it has a nice layout. All the seats are good for the most part.
You
So
can
yeah.
see like there's not really a bad seat in that place. Like I sat right near where the entrance was, and I mean you can see everything no matter where you're sitting there. So it's a nice small little intimate building that I don't know how the show came off on television because I'm sure we'll talk about that. You'll have your production notes. But in the building it came off really well. The setup was really cool with the double banners and the tournament screen and the table with the Crockett Cup and the tag team titles on it. And so like that whole setup was cool. The entrance way was nice, and like the ring looked really good. Everything seemed like it was mic'd pretty well. So and I don't know how it came off on television, but in the building, like the setup was really nice and really well done.
Yeah, and we will start talking about the Crockett Cup now. The NWA ran their latest big show is the return of the Crockett Cup in the Carolinas outside of Charlotte. And production-wise, it was really cool because the way they staged it, the hard camera was pointed at the entrance, or like the center part. The entrance was off to the side. So for like 90% of the show, you had the Crockett Cup and the tag titles in the background, which looked really cool. And then they had the old school ring apron, the blue ring apron, and the block lettering. ROH used an older school logo. And then like the graphics were all old school. So it really felt like you were watching basically like a Charlotte Coliseum show from 1986. And I love that. Because like if you're going to bring back the Crockett Cup and you're going to go for that old school vibe and you're going to bring legends back and do all that stuff, I think that's exactly what you should have done. So I thought it came off really good on TV. It looked really nice. I thought production overall was good. Commentary was excellent on the whole show. So I was really excited. Had a really good time with that. And the action started off the evening, which was the wild card tag team battle royal to give us our final team in the Crockett Cup. It was a bunch of geeks for the most part. It was the Dogs from ROH, the Boys from ROH, the Dawson Brothers, which are local, Josephus and Jay Bradley, Royce Isaacs and Thomas Latimer, which is the former Bram. And that got a lot of shit online because, for the most part, most people think Bram's a piece of shit domestic abuser. And, yeah, so that the reaction to that was something to track all night long, especially because we had to watch 4 Bram matches. 4 in the year of our Lord 2019.
So no one knew that this was Bram. At least the people around me. It's we saw this guy. No one knew who either of these guys were. Everyone was pulling for the Boys, and the Dawson brothers got a nice little reaction as well. These guys got in the ring like 5 minutes before 7. And so they just stood around for 5 minutes, and everyone was just like, why aren't you guys hitting each other now? And they did, I guess, just as a joke thing. Like, obviously, the bell has to ring, guys. It's not Suzuki Goon out here. They're just jumping people before the bell. So, yeah, the Battle Royal was what it was. It was every Battle Royal ever. The Boys were over, and again, the Dawson brothers got a nice little reaction. The Royce Isaacs and Thomas Lattimore, no one knew who the fuck these guys were. No one knew that it was Bram. So if their goal was to, use Bram without it being Bram, the domestic abuser, they, at least to the live crowd, accomplished that. But they also just made it to where no one cared about these guys because we didn't know who they were.
Yeah, and like I said, it was every battle royal ever. It wasn't bad. It was okay. It lasted just under 7 minutes, and Royce Isaacs and Bram won and moved on to the tournament. So that was fine. Then, like, the first, like, real match of the night here, we got Flip Gordon and Bandito versus Jeremy Jr. and Stuka Jr. And I thought this was a very good, fun little lucha-style sprint. Everybody working hard. Sounded like the crowd was really into it, with Flip and Bandito winning to move on. Again, thought it was very good. Went about 12 and a half minutes. Your live thoughts?
Real quickly, going back to the Battle Royal, Rhett Titus got eliminated first, and he's walking to the back. And again, I'm right by the entranceway, and some kid throws a streamer at him, and Rhett Titus picks it up. It doesn't unravel, so he picks it up and he throws it back, and I end up catching it and handing it back to the kid. And I don't think the kid threw the streamer again. So he learned his lesson that if he's gonna throw this streamer and guys are gonna throw it back, he's just not gonna throw a streamer at all. I felt bad for the kid, honestly. Flip Gordon, Bandito, Guerrero Maya, and Stuka. Crowd loved this match. I really enjoyed this match. Flip and Bandito were over big. I talked to Flip earlier in the day, and there's a name drop. And, this was the arena where he hurt his knee at the ROH TV taping. So he didn't say, like, I'm a little bit hesitant to go out there and get that first spot out of the way, see how my knee holds up and everything. But I could kind of tell it was just like, let me exercise a demon right now. And there was some rough spots in this match, I thought. There was one, it looked like they were going for a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker and Flip, and I don't remember if it was Maya or Stuka. They kind of got hung up, and then they did the spot over again. There was another spot where they had a little bit of trouble just making sure everyone was secure. I wouldn't say like these were complete botches. They saved it every single time, which is a credit to all four of these guys as professionals. But overall, like, it was a really fantastic match. Just a lot of good spots, a lot of good action, and Flip Gordon and Bandito picked up the win, which the crowd liked.
Yeah, and I thought it came off really good on TV. So again, a successful match for sure. And I think it was the exact match that everybody was kind of hoping for from these guys. One of the better matches on the show. We moved on to our second first round match, which was the War Kings facing off with Royce Isaacs and Bram. This lasted about 8 minutes. It was a theme for Isaacs and Bram. It was okay. Wasn't a lot of heat to it. Not a lot of energy to it. And Royce Isaacs and Bram defeated the War Kings with a cradle and grabbing the tights on Crimson.
No one cared about this match. We talked about, we thought that Jack Stain and Crimson might end up winning this whole thing because they're under NWA contract. They're NWA guys, I guess. I don't know what the contract situation is, but they're NWA guys. So to see them lose kind of added more unpredictability to the tournament, which was nice. But no, like, again, no one knew who Isaacs and Lattimore were, and no one really cared about Jack Stain and Crimson. So this match was what it was. It was probably even too long. Like 8 minutes for these guys just felt a little bit too long.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised Crimson and Dane lost here, but like you said, it added a little unpredictability, and that's not a bad thing. Because I mean, I didn't want them to win, but it just felt like that's how they were going to go. But again, as we talked about in the preview, there was a lot of unpredictability and a lot of guesswork because you didn't know how they were going to book this, and which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that because we're still learning about the NWA. We're still learning what it's going to be and all that, and so we'll let it figure itself out. And so we moved right along. Jim Cornette, who was on commentary, hit the ring, and he announced the Rock and Roll Express. Put them over, but noted that the Crockett Cup was the one thing that avoided them in their NWA careers. The Briscoes arrived and basically threatened to beat the old men's asses, tried to let them forfeit, and that did not work. And then the Rock and Rolls attacked, and as we talked about in the preview, this was a good match. The Rock and Roll Express played the hits. Ricky Morton played Ricky Morton, which It's just great. He bled a little bit. You know, we got double drop kick, we got a rocket launcher, and it lasted a little under 7 minutes, but I thought it was a good match. I don't think you really could have hoped for a lot more. The Briscoes won in the end. And yeah, it was, for an old NWA fan like me, it was really cool, you know, one more time in the Carolinas to hear that crowd do the rock and roll chant for him, trying to rally Ricky Morton with the flowing locks of his golden mullet, and just good stuff, man.
Ricky Morton can still go, honestly. I thought he looked great in this match. Gibson, a little less. I don't know how his dropkick came off on television, but I'm not sure he actually connected in real life. But Ricky Morton can still go. That guy can still move. He's 61 or however old he is, but overall, like he can still go out there and deliver a good performance. I mean, the man bled. Like the man decided to bleed, and God bless him for it. Crowd,
Yeah.
they loved the Rock and Roll Express. Obviously, once the Briscoes came out, it became more of a split thing because we like our backwoods guys from the Briscoes, so it became a little bit more split. But they turned back around on the Rock and Roll Express. I real quickly on Jim Cornette's promo. This was so good for a number of reasons. First, the whole, you guys haven't won the Crockett Cup. This is the one thing that has eluded you. And I thought that gave like an impression of like, oh man, they're building up this underdog story here. They've never done this. What a cap this would be at 60 years old for both these guys to go out there and win this Crockett Cup. So I thought it planted a little seed of, hey, maybe these guys can do it. I like that. And two, I don't know if this came off on television, but when the Briscoes came out and threatened Jim Cornette and he ran away, he legitimately ran the whole way. Like he ran out of the ring, ran around ringside. There's a whole staging area to the left of where I was sitting. He runs there, runs up the steps, and then back to the commentary table. So he did not, he thought he was on television the whole time. He did not walk the area or anything, or once he got off the screen, he didn't, coast from there. He ran the whole way back to the commentary booth. So live, I thought that came off really well. So I like the Jim Cornette, the whole setup there. And then the match, again, Ricky Morton can still go. The Briscoes are professionals. They let the Rock and Roll Express do Rock and Roll Express things. Briscoes winning, obviously the right call, but there was that little seed that, hey, maybe the Rock and Roll Express can pull this off. But overall, just for what it was, the crowd really loved this, and the match, it didn't overstay its welcome or anything. Just a strong segment from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think it's for the best because somebody was like, well, it only went like 7 minutes and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, dude, it's like the Rock and Roll Express are 60 fucking years old. Let's take what we can get here. With all due respect, they had a really good 7-minute match. They played the hits. The crowd seemed to love it. I loved it. It was good. It's like, seriously, I mean, how many times do we see old timers come back and shit? I mean, we talk about like the Triple H stuff all the time. It's like, guys that don't know how to work at their age, and the Rock and Rolls were enough of the Rock and Roll Express. The Briscoes got good heat on them, and it was good. I just don't think you can ask much more from it. Are you done moving furniture? Hello?
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Okay. I lost you there for a second. What was the last thing you said?
No, I just said I don't think you can really ask much more for what we got, especially two guys that are 60 years old. They were over. They gave us enough of the Rock and Roll Express to be happy. It was fun, and like you said, they planted a little seed. There was a little bit of hope. The crowd was into it. I mean, it worked.
Yeah, from start to finish, I thought this whole segment was great.
Exactly. So, I mean, again, for anybody that thought it should have been a lot longer, it's like you play to your strengths, you go with what works, And that's exactly what they did. So good stuff. We moved on to another first round match, Villain Enterprises versus Kojima and Nagata from New Japan. And we talked on the preview. The dads are still good enough to have a nice hard hitting match. They actually paired really well with PCO and Brody King. And I thought it was another good match. Went about 12 minutes. Again, good hard hitting. The dads worked hard, and just it came off nice. And I think it was exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah, the match was good. I'm for some reason I'm having a hard time recalling it, but overall it was a fine match. The crowd really liked PCO. They got into him a lot more later on, which we'll talk about, because this wasn't like super crazy PCO that we ended up seeing later on. They were respectful for Kojima and Nagata. I don't know how much the crowd knew about them, but it seemed like they knew enough to get into it. And another short match, which is what it needed to be. And like I would have preferred, I guess you said this went about 12 minutes, so not like super short. But overall, again, for some reason, I'm just having trouble recalling this match, but it was good. Crowd liked it. Villain Enterprises won.
Yeah, and again, it kind of a statement for the most part of a lot of the stuff on the night that worked. Was it was exactly what it needed to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get overcomplicated with things. So Medusa was brought out next, and she had the NWA Women's Championship. She cut a really weird promo that didn't particularly come off very well, I thought, and announced our competitors. What was the reaction to that live?
The crowd wanted to like Medusa because I mean it's Medusa, and like they wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, but it was very rough. And I think by the middle of it, people were just like, "Can we get on with this, please?" It was, again, it started respectful, and it was like, "Oh, cool, this is a cool moment. Medusa's here. She's gonna introduce the match and everything." And then it just became, "You've said this stuff. What are you actually doing? Can we please just get to the match?" And I honestly, I don't. We'll talk about the match in a second, but I feel like this whole setup actually ended up hurting the match.
Yeah, it felt like it took the crowd out of it. It wasn't like it was overly long, but she just kind of droned on about stuff, and it felt like she lost her point. Lost the plot at one point, and just like, and here's Santana, Garrett, and Sienna. It's like Allison K, bitch. Come on now. But So what did you think of the match?
It wasn't good. I don't know how it came off on television. Live, you could tell they were working and I'm not saying you have to go out there and be New Japan style and just be completely stiff the shit out of each other, but they were working very soft, very light. Nothing was really looking like it was landing with any effect. The crowd did not care at all, except for this one guy in my section who just kept saying Santana, Santana, and I'm like, oh my god, can this guy shut up? He was just trying to entertain himself, I think, but yeah, it didn't come off very good live, honestly. The work just didn't look all that believable. And again, if it came off better on television, great. Kudos to the production team. But just being there watching in person, it was just a very light match. And again, the crowd didn't seem to know or care about either lady, and the Medusa promo kind of took them out of it from there. So just like how the Cornette Briscoes Rock and Roll Express was great start to finish, like segment, match, ending, all of it came off really well. This was pretty much the exact opposite, where Medusa promo, match, ending, it all just came off very, very flat.
And again, for those of you that haven't attended wrestling live, there is a really big difference, especially the closer you sit to the action, because you really notice when, and like Jeremy said, we're not talking about like working strong style, but you can tell when things whiff and things don't look like they're connecting and stuff like that, and it just it's very obvious when it's not clicking well. I thought it was solid. Like you said, it didn't feel like the crowd was into it at all. I didn't think it was bad, but I had higher hopes for it. It was 9 minutes. Allison Kay won the title, which I thought was a good call. But yeah, it was just it came off as solid, but basically unspectacular to me.
It felt longer than 9 minutes too. 9 minutes doesn't seem like a long time. This felt like it went about 15.
And see, that's never good too when things feel like they last longer than they are.
Yeah, it just, again, I'm not trying to say everything needs to be strong style, everything needs to be laid in. But like you said, when you're there live, you get a different perspective on things. And when you see stuff that we know it's wrestling, we know not everything lands completely, 100% on the body and everything. But when stuff is like on some of that stuff, it wasn't even that close, honestly. And they still sell it and everything, but you can just tell when it's not being, it's not connecting. And so when you see stuff that isn't connecting and girls or guys are acting like it's still, landing hard and everything, it's like that's what they're supposed to do. That's professional wrestling. But at the same time, when you see it, it's like there's not that believability factor to this match. And that's what it came off with as live. It's like I just didn't have that believability factor of this was a good wrestling match. It just felt like these ladies were going out there doing their spots, and it came off how it came off live. I can't apologize for how I felt it came off. It didn't come off well.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think they did a good job shooting it because it wasn't like very noticeable. It just wasn't good. It was fine. It existed. It was there. But years ago, when Chrissy and I would do podcast stuff, I talked about we went to a TNA UWF show that co-promoted by Hermie Sadler in Kenansville, by where we used to live in Warsaw, and we went to this show, and it had some TNA people on it, and then it had a lot of local indie guys, and Scotty 2 Hotty was on the show, and we watched like the first like 6 matches or so before intermission. Scotty 2 Hotty was on right before intermission, and he's doing the full Scotty 2 Hotty act. He had his daughter with him, and she got in the ring afterwards and danced with her dad. It was super cute, but we were sitting like front row, so you're right there by the ring, and all evening, like Christy would lean over. She's like, "Wow," she's like, "I never really noticed like how things don't look really good as opposed to TV until tonight." I'm like, "Yeah," I'm like, "It's you're right here." I'm like, "There's no covering up, there's no camera angles," and then Scotty 2 Hotty comes out working this local dude, and Scotty 2 Hotty, and I like Scotty, and I think he was a very good worker, but he looked like the greatest fucking worker on the planet. Everything he did was crisp and on point. He looked like he was destroying this dude with punches. Probably wasn't even like grazing his cheek, but everything just looked so good, especially in comparison. And again, when you're there live, if you've never been to a wrestling show live, I mean, I urge you to go because, I mean, obviously wrestling is great. You have a lot of fun, but it's a completely different perspective. And like Jeremy said, you pick up things that are not evident on TV, and it makes it a very different experience. To whereas, like, the same thing is you hear people that go to a show live, and they say it's like the greatest show they've ever went to. And then they come home and say, like, read my review, and I say, like, yeah, it was a fine show, it was a good show. And it's like a crime against humanity that I didn't love the show because they had this tremendous live experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to, like, make anybody feel bad, but it's just, again, it's totally different. I mean, it can either make it a great experience for you or it can take away from things. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And we move on. Caprice Coleman
was doing ringside interviews for a lot of the night, and he was joined by the Midnight Express, Sweet Stan Lane, Beautiful Bobby, and Loverboy Dennis Condrey. And the coolest thing was, like, Caprice is a Carolina guy. He's totally marking off for the Midnight Express. He's so happy to be talking to these guys. You know, Bobby Eaton talked a little bit. Stan Lane talked. Dennis Condrey talked about beating his cancer. Really nice moment. Just bringing the Midnights out on the same show that the Rock and Roll and paying tribute to that to the NWA vibe and everything. And I thought that was a really nice thing.
The Caprice Coleman one, which one was this? Was this the because he had one where he kind of botched things up. I think it was before the Medusa promo that that one which we glossed over, which was just Caprice Coleman setting things up, but that one he didn't come off very well. The other ones he was much better. Was this the Midnight Express one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, the Midnight Express one, crowd loved this. Crowd was into it. The Midnight Express were at the VIP event, and then we'll talk about Nikita and Magnum, but they were there as well. So people who attended that kind of knew that some of this stuff was coming, but it was really cool to see live for the larger crowd in the audience. So yeah, I thought this came off really well, and bringing back the legends, it's a nice homage to the past. And again, this whole thing was very much, it's 2019, but we're paying tribute to the 1980s, and this was another sign of that. So I thought Caprice Coleman was good here after a rough start, and then crowd really liked Midnight Express and everything.
Yeah, so the Crockett Cup continued with our first semifinal match. Royce Isaacs and Bram defeated, unfortunately, Flip Gordon and Bandito. This was the match where Flip, quote unquote, injured and had to sell his knee, which you had to figure would play into it at some point. And again, Flip and Bandito tried really hard. It was okay. It went 7.5 minutes. And again, like I said, Isaacs and Bram, it was, people even joked in my review because I used to call Bram 2-star Bram and walk and brawl Bram. And that's pretty much what he did all night.
Yeah, he did. This finish was very flat. No one, I'm sure commentary brought it up, and so it made it seem better with Flip's knee injury and everything. Most people live didn't buy that Flip was injured, so I think that hurt things a little bit. But what really ended up hurting things was just it's fucking Bram and his partner who no one has heard of. So it was very flat. The finish was very flat. It was seemingly like out of nowhere. I think most people just expected Flip Gordon and Bandito to win because they figured why the hell are Isaacs and Lattimore going to win? But Flip and Bandito did their best for the first part of this match, and then once they went into I think Flip hit like a flip senton or something, and that's when he injured his knee. It might have been a 450, but whatever he did, where he ended up selling his knee after that's when Isaacs and Lattimore took over, and then Flip, everyone just expected, Flip's working a knee injury. He's going to get the hot tag to Bandito. He's going to run wild, and that's going to be that. And then it just never came. They worked over the knee. They got the roll up with the tights again, and that was that. So very, very flat finish, and the crowd was not too happy with that.
Yeah, it was deflating, I thought. And yeah, you are right. It was on the 450 splash spot. I just checked my recap, and he's the 450 on Isaacs and pulls up, selling the previously injured knee. So yeah, and that's a shame, but I don't know. I guess they're Billy's boys and whatever, but didn't come off well. Again, just deflating, and you could tell people in the building, like just watching on TV, they were like, "Oh, why are the fun guys losing? That's no good."
Yeah, it was it was again just very flat, very deflating. Crowd was just like, what? Again, we didn't know who these guys were. Like there were two guys who were in the battle royal, and then now all of a sudden they're about to be in the finals, and they just beat. I mean, really the most popular outside of the Briscoes, I think. Flip and Bandito were the most over tag team in this Crockett Cup. I mean, the Rock and Roll Express were there as well, but so and then Flip and Bandito. But as far as just match quality as well, like these are the two guys who you're going to get a great match out of. And after their first match, people were into these guys even more. And it's just now we've got, Isaacs and Lattimore.
Yeah. So we moved on to our second semifinal match. Villain Enterprises defeating the Briscoes via disqualification, which came off really oddly. They did the gimmick. They had a good match, and then all of a sudden things kind of got out of hand. They got chairs at the end, and it looked like PCO and King used them first. Then the Briscoes hit them, and then I'm waiting. Then they're like, Villain Enterprises won via DQ. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. So good match, flat finish, and protecting the Briscoes so they don't take another L right now. But Villain Enterprises moves on, and then post-match, the Briscoes beat the shit out of PCO. They Pillmanized his arm with chairs. Mark hit a crazy top rope kind of senton deal onto the chairs, and basically just tried to destroy PCO's arm. And they were then pissed off because the NWA did them dirty.
The finish did not come off well at all. Again, after you have Flip and Bandito losing and that whole ordeal and that really flat finish, to come back with this finish, it was just back to back not good finishes that the crowd just wasn't pleased with either of them. They did save things with the whole post-match angle because crowd's gonna love chairs and stuff like that. So I give them credit there that they managed to save things in that aspect. This is where the crowd really loved PCO. So in the section I was sitting, some people knew PCO and others they didn't understand who he was. They didn't realize he was the Jean-Pierre Lafitte from WWE, WWF in the 90s, or part of the Quebecers or anything like that. They were just like, who is this guy? He's just kind of a crazy guy. And then by the end of this match with this guy, he's complete lunatic, honestly, with his senton onto the hardest part of the ring. You don't need to be doing that, but God bless him if he wants to keep doing it. That spot, and then taking the senton with the chairs from the Briscoes, that spot, people are like, man, this guy is a fucking maniac and he's awesome. So by the end of this match, the people around me who really did not know who PCO was, they legitimately never heard of this guy. They were like, this is now. One guy even said, I got to watch more of this guy's matches and stuff. And so we were talking about, yeah, he's on ROH pretty much every week. And so I was just telling him about, I didn't say, hey, do you remember the Quebecers or anything like that? That's him. I was just kind of telling him, this is where you can find out more about him. So the crowd loved PCO by the end of this. The finish wasn't good. The match itself until the finish, I thought was fine. You get why they did the finish. It's two ROH guys. They've worked a lot of matches in recent months. Villain Enterprises beat them at the 17th anniversary show, and then I think they did a DQ the week later, and then they wrestled again at Madison Square Garden. So you want to kind of protect both guys both teams in that aspect. So I understand the DQ finish. It just after Flip and Bandito had lost and the way they lost, and then you come back with a DQ finish, it was just back-to-back finishes where crowd just wasn't into either of them. But credit to them, at least the post-match and the Briscoes promo turned things around, and the crowd was back up into things because that was a cool spot with the Briscoes and PCO.
Yeah, so Villain Enterprises moves on via the DQ to the finals. Next up was the NWA National Championship match. Champion Willie Mack defending against Colt Cabana. And we got a title change here, as we talked about in the preview and both thought we might see. They had a good match, a little under 10 minutes. I thought they worked really well together. Willie Mack did the fucking Chris Hamrick spot where he misses the drop kick and flies through the middle of the ropes and splats on the fucking floor. That was fantastic. But yeah, good match. Cornette on commentary, real quick to go back to the PCO thing. He goes up for the senton, and Riccaboni's like, he tries this all the time. He's only hit it once. And then he flies and fucking misses. And Cornette just goes, why? And it was hilarious. He was so good. But Cornette was really good on commentary here, because what I liked is, Ian Riccaboni was like putting over Cabana, he's his broadcast partner and everything. And Cornette was just like, listen, had my problems with Colt Cabana. He's like, I don't think he takes wrestling as seriously as he should sometimes. But when he does, he's a hell of a wrestler. He's lived in England. He's traveled the world. And he's a great representative for the NWA as a former champion. And I really liked that, like, it wasn't like he tried to hide anything. It's like he got his real thought out there, because he has had problems with Colt in the past. He's not his biggest fan, but there is a certain amount of respect there, which I thought came off well. But again, a good match. Colt Cabana is your new champion, and there are rumblings that Willie Mack lost the title because he may become AEW exclusive in the U.S.
Well, that would explain why Willie Mack was I don't know if he was in a bad mood during the VIP session. You see Willie Mack on television and you think that, like, oh, this guy is, he's a fun-loving guy and he's having a good time and he's very personable and very charismatic. He was late to the VIP session earlier in the day and just was kind of sour for a lot of the day. And I mean, I give the guy, I appreciate that he gave me time to talk to him. I'm just saying how he sort of came off to potentially other fans and stuff. I'm sure he was fine during the meet and greets and whatnot, but he just seemed a little salty, a little angry throughout the day. Maybe he had Sasha Banks syndrome. I don't know. But he went out there, he worked hard. They had a really good match, and Cabana winning, wasn't too surprising. The Superman pin, I don't know. It doesn't come off as like, people don't seem to think that this is a spot that should end a match, I guess, because no one really seemed to know. Like when he hit it, I mean, he won a New Japan Cup match with it, but when he hit it, people were just like, oh, okay. Like no one really thought that was going to be the finish, and then it was the finish, and it didn't come off like flat like the last two matches. It just came off more of unsuspecting, like, oh, that's the finish. All right, cool. Now we have to react. Not that I don't think it really took away from the reaction, but maybe a little bit, just because people just didn't think that was going to be the finish. The match was short, and it even felt shorter than 9 minutes. Like I thought they were kind of just getting going, and then this is why, again, the Superman finish, it just came off like very, very sudden. It just felt like they were just getting going, and then they went to the finish. But overall a good match. And then Cabana, we'll see what he does with the title. He's a guy who's got a lot of ins with a lot of companies, so that obviously helps with the NWA and getting them, more exposure. I don't know what Willie Mack is going to be AEW exclusive. I've actually heard that he's set for big things in Impact, so we'll see what happens with Willie Mack. Either way, it definitely seems like he wasn't in for the long haul anymore with the NWA, whether he goes to AEW, whether he, gets a big push in Impact or something like that. It just doesn't seem like he was going to be around, being able to defend the national title across different promotions and stuff for the NWA, which, hey, good on him. Like this guy is very good. He's good in the ring. He can go in the ring. A very charismatic guy on the microphone and with his personality. So he truthfully deserves, whether he gets a bigger push in Impact, whether he goes to AEW, like he deserves a bigger spotlight. I thought Lucha Underground was really good for him, and then Lucha Underground's dead, but he deserves a bigger spotlight, and we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. There's a lot of speculation out there right now on his future, and as you said, I think he's deserving of a good spot wherever he decides to stay or go to. I like Willie Mack a lot. Yeah, he was really good in Lucha Underground, which, like you said, is pretty much unfortunately looking like it's dead. And there you go. So post-match, they set up Cabana's first challenger is James Storm. Remember that guy? Came out and kind of ran down the NWA because they don't want they want world champions in fancy clothes and they can talk well, but not somebody that drinks beer and has fun. Said he respected Cabana, challenged him for his newly won title, and we will see if and when that happens. But I appreciate them, setting up an angle and trying to get another match booked. And again, we'll see when and where it happens. We moved on to more legends. Caprice.
Wait a second, I got a comment on James Storm.
I'm sorry, I didn't really cared.
The crowd liked James Storm. He was a nice surprise. I've always been a fan of James Storm. I know he's had. I don't know the guy personally. I've never met him, but you hear stories of he can be difficult to work with. I mean, you look at him in the past couple of years where it looked like he had a nice spot going in NXT. Like he would have been, I don't know about quite a Bobby Roode role, but something similar to that, or he at least could have gone on to like a player coach role there. He went to MLW for like one show. I think he showed up back in TNA. Like he's just kind of bounced around all over the place, and apparently attitude issues have been kind of a reason for that. He wrestled Aldis for the title earlier this year, and they had a good match. And I liked Storm's promo of they basically want Ric Flair as their champion. They want the guy who's well groomed, well dressed, can work that kind of style, isn't gonna say anything foul or anything like that. They want Ric Flair as a champion, and James Storm came off as maybe more of like a Dusty Rhodes, like just a common man who's gonna drink beer and to curse a little bit and things like that. So I like that promo from him. The national title seems to be a good spot for him. I think you can build James Storm. I know he's like 40, over 40 at this point, so I don't know about building your whole company around James Storm, but you can build James Storm as a really credible challenger for not only Cabana's title, but then possibly Aldis title again, instead of just a throw-on match to that pop-up show they did earlier this year. So, and James Storm came off really well to the live crowd. The whole streamers being stuck in his feet and then Cabana pulling them away was the crowd really liked that. Crowd had fun with the streamers all night, and the guy who had to collect the streamers did not have fun with them all night.
That's like the shittiest job in the world.
This guy, I think he was he got shoved out of the chair by the Briscoes in their match where everyone was going after chairs. And this poor guy. So these two or three fans behind him, they're yelling, "Don't throw streamers." So they're trying to get this chant going, but it doesn't catch on or anything. And so people throw streamers, and the guy runs up to grab them, and then the fans chanting, "Don't throw streamers." They then throw their streamers as the guy is away from his chair, and then he puts the streamers underneath the chair, and these fans take their foot and put it under the railing and start pulling the streamers underneath the railing so they have more to throw. This poor guy had to deal with just fans who love streamers right behind him, and then just grabbing the streamers and everything. And he got tossed over by the Briscoes or Brody King. It was one of them. Rough night for this guy.
That's funny. Again, that poor bastard. So Caprice Coleman was back. They brought out some of the Crockett's, and then he introduced Nikita Koloff. Caprice again was, he's a Carolina guy. He's an NWA fan, and just marking out for Nikita Koloff. And Nikita Koloff he breaks into the traditional Nikita Koloff promo, and he's starting with the thick Russian accent. And as he goes on, he just kind of starts talking in his normal voice. And Caprice goes, "Hey, man, what happened to your accent?" And he goes, "Well," he's like, "I've been living here for like 30 years. It had to get better eventually." And it's like, I was like, okay, that's funny.
Because that was a great little back and forth between those two.
Yeah, and he's like, Caprice is so happy, and they brought out Magnum TA, and Nikita and him, they share a hug, and they talk about the history of the NWA and being proud that the Crockett Cup is back, and he thanked the NWA fans for their love over the years after his accident. And again, another really nice segment with the legends, and it's nice when you pay tribute like that. And again, you're doing it at the right show in the right city, and it fit perfectly. So
this is another segment that came off really well for the live crowd. We loved Nikita and Magnum, seeing Magnum again. And, I think Caprice said, this is like the first time you guys have seen each other in 20 years. I'm just like, they saw each other earlier today. They did a whole panel together, which was really, really cool to hear them talk about their wars in the 80s and their best of 7 series and everything. But just, again, another good segment that the crowd really enjoyed.
Good stuff. So we moved on to the Crockett Cup finals, which were also to crown new NWA Tag Team Champions, Royce Isaacs and Bram versus Villain Enterprises. For basically no reason. They had Medusa in their last match give them some advice, and then she led them out here and then did nothing.
Yeah, so in the last match, this was another thing that came off weird, because Flip and Bandito were about to do their dives, and then they did some weird dance. I know the dance is a Fortnite, but they did their dance, and Medusa's talking to them at ringside, and we were confused of why is Medusa still out there? I thought she was only out there for the women's match. And then she talks to them, and then she walks to the back, and then here she comes out with them, she gives them advice, and then she just leaves and goes to the back. And we're like, what is the point of all of this? If you're their manager now, why aren't you at ringside with them? I guess it made sense of, in the first match, it's okay, I'm going to give them advice, and then I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to come out later and show that, hey, now I'm their manager. All right, that sure. But then why leave again? It's I'm just here to give you advice on camera and then leave. You can't give them this advice backstage. It was very odd, and it seemingly meant nothing. I was going to ask, did it come off on television to where it was a bigger deal, or they played something up more, or is there just something the live audience missed? But it sounds like no, it was exactly how it came off, and it was just seemingly pretty pointless.
Yeah, it was just really weird. So PCO and King were selling their injuries from the vicious attack by the Briscoes, and most of the match was Brody King running wild and then getting cut off, and the below average team of Isaacs and Bram took the heat for a while, and King eventually started fighting them off, and PCO lifts his dead arm up and over the ropes, and he's begging for the tag. He's selling his arm is dead, and then Brody King finally gets the tag, and PCO slowly comes in, his arms hanging there, and then in an homage to the all-time cinema classic Best of the Best, he looks at Brody King and says, "Pop it, Tommy! Pop it!" And he goes ahead, and Brody King
pops his arm back into place by stunning him off the ropes. PCO is alive. He's fired up. He's pissed off. Absorbs strikes, hits clothesline, runs wild. Him and King end up winning after the PCO assault. And Villain Enterprises, your NWA Tag Team Champions, your 2019 Crockett Cup Champions. The match was okay. The winners were the right team, but Isaacs and Graham were just a fucking drag on the night.
This was another, the whole like fix my arm spot was really great. And again, this was another just spot where the crowd was like, this guy is awesome. Like PCO is awesome. Got to see more of him. Isaacs and Lattimore making it this far, it's kind of like we talked about on the preview, where we thought like, all right, Jack Stain and Crimson are going to win this thing because they're NWA guys. Like that's what I got the feeling heading into this match, is like, all right, well, I guess these guys are NWA guys, so they're going to win. So it did add an element of intrigue. I was kind of set on, well, these guys are seemingly going to win, and the whole, PCO's arm being hurt would have been like the excuse of why they would end up winning this match. But then when PCO got his arm fixed, you're like, oh shit, maybe PCO and Brody King are actually going to win. And then when PCO and Brody King did win, I felt the pop was good for their victory. I don't know how it came off on television, but the live crowd really, really liked it. And because I was so set on, well, I guess they're just going to have these guys win because they're NWA guys, seeing PCO and Brody King win was nice to see. Like it was a cool moment, and they celebrated with the Crockett Cup, and it definitely the right call. Definitely, better than fucking Bram and whoever the other guy is winning this and then having 2-star matches all over the country. I don't know. Like, who knows what the status is? Obviously, the NWA has a good relationship with ROH. I think they were on Honor Club. The ROH name and logo was all over this broadcast. ROH guys were all over this broadcast. So they have a good relationship with ROH. I'm sure they can defend these titles in ROH and then defend them across other. But the other promotions thing, I guess, is where it might get iffy, because as far as I know, Brody King and PCO are pretty exclusive to ROH. I'm sure they wouldn't mind them loaning them out to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood or anything like that. So we'll see how it goes with these two being the champions, but definitely the right call over the Isaacs and Lattimore.
And I'm sorry, but when you reenact the Tommy Lee Alexander Brady spot from Best of the Best, there's no stopping you, because that was fantastic. Yeah, it's been a great year for Villain Enterprises. These guys, they won the ROH tag titles. They currently hold the trios titles with Marty, and they've added more gold. And I also think they hold like the WS something Australian tag title. So yeah, these guys have had a hell of a year so far. Some great matches and picking up gold, and it's good to see them succeed. And Magnum TA and Nikita presented them with the cup and the titles, and yes, again, another nice little post-match moment and nod to history right before our main event. And they kept with the legends in history before the main event, as they brought out legendary NWA referee Tommy Young, who refereed all the big matches back in the day, to give the instructions. Brian Hebner actually refereed the match because Tommy retired years ago, partially due to injury and stuff. But it was nice to see Tommy Young out there. And again, another really nice nod to the old school.
Crowd really enjoyed seeing Tommy Young out there. So it was cool to have him out there. He got a nice little Tommy chant. I don't know, again, how it came off, but in the building, he got a nice little Tommy chant, which was cool to see.
Yeah, so our main event was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis defending against his good friend Marty Scurll. They went a hair under 24 minutes. They worked really hard. Aldis got busted open, got color, and I thought that like we talked about in the preview, these guys are very good friends. You knew they were going to work hard. You just hope they didn't overstay their welcome and didn't get too cute with shenanigans. And I thought they had a very good match. They kicked out Camille early, which is Aldis' second. She tried to get involved at the end, but he sent her away. Marty, good heat for Marty, trying to, pick up the win with the chicken wing and stuff, and it just came off really well. But ended up with Nick Aldis getting the Kingsland Cloverleaf. Marty fought like a good boy. The crowd tried to rally him, but he had to tap out to his good friend. Nick Aldis retains. I thought it was very good.
Marty was over huge in this match, and Aldis generated some good heat as well. Aldis has, maybe he's done this before, but Aldis has adopted the Conor McGregor / Vince McMahon strut as part of his persona now. He doesn't do it quite as exaggerated as those two, but it is certainly part of his gimmick. The one thing we talked about in this match before in our preview was, could they get Marty as in a believable enough spot to where this guy is going to win? Because I don't think me or you thought that Marty was going to win this match just because it's for the NWA World Heavyweight title. Marty is about to go to New Japan as in the best of Super Juniors. He's being presented as a Super Junior. He's going to lose matches in that tournament. Do they want their champion? Unless they do another quick title switch, do they want their champion losing these matches? And Marty, he's might be AEW bound in the next couple of months anyway. So we both figured all this was going to win. The goal is obviously, can you make it believable enough to where can Marty have these spots of, all right, this guy is going to win this match? And he certainly did have those spots. There was a great near fall. I don't remember what Marty ended up hitting, but it was after the ref bump with the slow count on all this. Even the superplex got a nice near fall. And the chicken wing, people really thought that all this is gonna pass out or tap out. The blood played an extra aspect into that because people thought, oh, he might not tap out, but he's bled enough to where he might end up passing out here. So they did manage to hook the crowd with, and myself included, they did manage to hook us with, hey, these are believable near falls that this guy could win the title. And then Aldis won, which was fine. We both expected that. You said the match went 24, 25 minutes. It did not feel like that live. When you said that and when I read your report and I saw oh shit, this went over, almost 25 minutes. It really felt like this was 15, 20 minutes or so. They worked a good pace. The blood added a lot to it. It gave it more sense of an urgency. Marty's really good. I thought Aldis upped his game here. The Camille spots were good, getting her kicked out. Marty, faking the trip while she was 10 feet away to get her kicked out. The crowd really, really enjoyed that spot. Aldis stopping her from interfering because him and Marty are good friends. No, I want to handle this on my own. That was a good spot. The ref bump was unnecessary, but it added to the drama, and it was the only time on this show where they did a ref bump, so it was fine. It's not like they overdid it like those old TNA shows or anything like that. And it didn't lead to super extra shenanigans. It led to Camille coming in and then Aldis preventing that. So I was fine with the ref bump in this aspect. They made it work. Overall, from start to finish, again, live will give you a different perspective, and it makes the match seem hotter and probably better than it was on television. I saw you gave it 3.5 stars. I'm not a guy who gives star ratings, but from start to finish, for being in the audience, it was just a really, really strong match that the crowd was into from the very beginning to the very end. So I thought as a match and as a whole, it did exactly what it needed to do. And the like it was a great main event.
Yeah, it worked, and like you said, it didn't feel that long because I was actually surprised when Marty tapped and I hit the stopwatch. I was like, well, that didn't feel that long. I'm like, that's nice. I always appreciate that, you know. So, but yeah, they did a really good job, and they had a nice moment afterwards, and you know, they're
So this was shown on television. This is what when I read your report, I was a little surprised that the whole post match segment was shown on television.
Yeah, they hugged, and Marty talked about when he started 15 years ago that Aldis was the first person that took him under his belt and, you know, helped him and all that stuff. And, you know, tonight they showed how far they both came. He congratulated Aldis and said nobody deserves the NWA title more. And then Nick says that they proved tonight that Marty is the biggest self-made star in wrestling and that the rebirth of the NWA is real. Thought it came off really well afterwards. And you had some people bitching like, oh, do they have to hug post-match and blah, blah, blah. It's like, fuck off. They're friends, okay?
The whole build, like the build for this was, you know, Aldis wanted Marty to be his partner for the Crockett Cup because they're really good friends. And then Marty, he's the villain. So he's like, no, I want the fucking title. And then like that was the whole build for this is these guys are friends. One guy's a champion. The other guy wants to be a champion. So you set that friendship aside. So you battle it out for this title. And then they do battle. They have this great match. And then after the match, like they're friends again. So I don't see any complaint of, oh, they hugged and they made up and whatnot. Like, it's not that they were ever like these bitter rivals or anything. It was just they set their friendship aside to try to win the title. They duked it out. And fuck, you see it all the time in UFC. Like these guys supposedly have this, like, it's not even friendship. Like they supposedly have this bitter rivalry, and then they beat the shit out of each other. And then afterwards they hug and they congratulate each other because like that's just what happens once you settle it in the ring or in the cage. Like you can become friends again. So anyone complaining about them hugging is just like looking for a reason to complain to me.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but overall, I thought the NWA had a good show overall. I do hold their crimes against humanity with 4 brand matches against them. But overall, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I really like the throwback graphics and stuff like that, and you know, paying tribute to the legends and including them in the show. And it's, you know, you're sitting there, you have to put on good events, and not only that, I mean, when you're charging more money, you know, because like there are people that ordered it on Fight, it was on traditional pay-per-view and stuff. People are used to paying, you know, $10 for the majority of their stuff right now. You get the WWE Network or you get New Japan World, you're paying $10. So when you're an NWA or an Impact Wrestling and you're going to charge $20, $25, or $40, you have to deliver a good show. So I thought they did an overall good job. I enjoyed it, thought it was fun. And so thumbs up for the NWA Crockett Cup show.
Yeah, live it came off really good. And everything from the setup to the presentation was really strong for the live crowd. So how much did it cost on Fight TV?
I think it was $20. I don't know. I mean, I watched it through Honor Club, so I didn't bet.
Okay. Like $20 for this show, it seems like a good deal to me. Like paying for my ticket, I was not comped. Paying for my ticket, I paid $50 and had a good seat, and like it was completely worth it. Like, so $20 on pay-per-view, like that's the thing nowadays with pay-per-view. We talk about all the time is like you can get all these shows on the WWE Network for $10, and that's basically what you're paying for the pay-per-view on top of everything else that you get. And then like fucking Impact, you pay like $40 for the pay-per-view, and you really have to deliver a strong show for $40. And we'll talk about Impact in a second. But like $20 for this show seemed like it would have been completely worth it. Because it's $50 was worth it to definitely worth it to be there live. So $20 at home, it was certainly a pay-per-view worth $20. or even more. I thought that just everything came off really well. The main event delivered. Yeah, the brand matches all sucked, but still overall just a great presentation and some really strong stuff by the NWA. Now, like, this is the problem with the NWA, is that now they go back to the 10 pounds of gold series, try to build things up, and we'll see what happens with them. Like, their champions are all strong. Aldis is a very strong world heavyweight champion. He's going to keep defending the title. You got PCO and Brody King, who crowds, like I was telling you with the Crockett Cup, crowds, even if they don't know these guys, by the end of the night, they're going to absolutely love them, because PCO is just, he's fucking the hottest star in the business right now. I wouldn't go that far, but he knows how to, like, he is super hot right now. Crowds love Colt Cabana. They got a feud with James Storm brewing there. So I think the NWA is in a good spot. They do things well for 2019 while also just paying tribute to the past. And I think that's a good thing to do. They're not trying to be anything. They're trying to be different while also just trying to be traditional. And that's not a bad mix of things, of what you want to do for your wrestling company. They're not going like too far out of the box with their ideas or anything like that, but they're going enough outside while still staying in, if that makes any sense at all, to where fans can relate and easily get behind the product and easily follow the product.
Yeah, one suggestion I saw for them, which I really liked, it was from the guys at Voices Wrestling, and I agreed with it, was one thing that they may want to consider is doing like a studio show weekly, like the Beyond Wrestling Uncharted Territory show, because you could do a studio show which kind of plays into the old school NWA vibe. But I mean, you need to eventually start doing more than like 3 or 4 big shows a year. You need to eventually start picking up some momentum. So it'll be interesting to see what the next step is. And I agree, you don't want to run before you can walk, and that is one thing I am appreciating with them. They're trying to set a foundation, so we'll see what they do next.
Yeah, using ROH as sort of a way to build a lot of their matches, because most of the build for Skrull and all this took place on ROH television. Yeah, a studio show, a 1-hour studio show wouldn't be that bad. I don't know. I'm sure they could get enough guys to fill that hour. I like the whole, 4 big shows a year. They definitely don't need to be doing monthly shows or anything like that. Like, build these shows up and do that well. And I wouldn't even have, like, even on these studio shows, you could, because right now they release, like, if Aldis defends the title in, let's say, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, like, they just release that match on YouTube. Like, if you have the studio show, you just put that match on that show. And okay, it's not like a live match or anything like that, but you could theoretically tape like your whole month of shows in one setting. Be like, all right, well, for 30 minutes here, we'll just have this Nick Aldis match where he defended the world title elsewhere or something like that. Like, I don't think this would cost a whole lot to produce. You wouldn't have to like fly in a ton of different wrestlers or anything. You would need smart people of how to piece this whole show together with other matches from other promotions. But I think they have smart people, especially with Lagana and other people behind the scenes. So I actually like that idea. I think it would, I don't know what their budgets or what their goals are. They seem to be doing fairly well with the YouTube stuff. But this would certainly be a new route for them. But, do they want television? Are they just going to put those shows on YouTube? You got to consider that as well, of just sort of what their end game is as well.
Yeah, and again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So before we move on to our next subject, a reminder, you can follow the 411 on Wrestling podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and of course the 411 website. Please make sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, and share us on social media. We would appreciate it. We are going to go ahead and talk about the Impact Wrestling Rebellion pay-per-view, Jeremy, which took place Sunday night from Canada. And, we talked about on the preview, Impact has made a habit of really solid TV and on their regular pay-per-views, not like the Junkie United We Stand I pay-per-view thing, but on the pay-per-views, delivering good to great pay-per-views. And I thought they did another good job overall Sunday night. And so we will break that down. We started off with an X Division 6-way. Petey Williams, Jay Christ, Aiden Prince, Ace Austin, Cousin Jake Diener, and Eddie Edwards. Your thoughts?
Good, strong opener. It only went like 5 or 6 minutes, so it's tough to say like there was some spectacular match, but everyone got a bunch of spots in. I felt kind of bad for Eddie Edwards because I feel like this guy was one of the hottest guys in the company a year ago, and now here he is in a 6-minute X Division opener, just kind of part of the group, like not really standing out or anything like that. And they seem to have no real spot for him right now. And the Eli Drake thing obviously muddies the situation because it was pretty clear they were building first as him and Drake as a team, and then Drake turned on him, and then you do that match down the line. So that kind of put Eddie in a awkward position where he wasn't going to be able to do a whole lot for this pay-per-view. But it felt like they could have done something else with him as far as just a backstage segment instead of just, hey, let's throw Eddie Edwards in this match to just kind of be another guy who blends in. Ace Austin winning was a good call. It seems like he's going to get some type of a push in the division. So a good, quick match where, yeah, you can't really complain about a 6-minute match where everything is just kind of moves at a fast pace.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I just, I wish it got more time because it felt like they were really just getting started when they went to the finish. But again, not bad or anything. I just I wanted a little more because I think they could have done something pretty great. But there you go. They announced Impact Plus, which is going to be the updated Global Wrestling Network because of the Jarrett lawsuit, and so that's going to start, I believe, Wednesday.
They didn't have what struck me with this is they didn't have. And I don't know, I assume it's $9.99, but they didn't have a price point for this. Like, they announced Impact Plus and then they don't tell you how much it costs. It just seemed very, I'm not saying they were trying to like fool anybody here, but it's like, hey, get Impact Plus. And then you go to the website and it's like, again, I think it's $9.99, but if you go to that website and you see like it's $20, who's going to be like, yeah, I want this whole thing for $20. I don't know. It just felt very disingenuous not to say it costs this much.
Yeah, it felt very, very kind of rushed and thrown together. Again, because of the whole lawsuit thing. But so that's the big change. Our second match, which was added during the day due to a social media beef, the Smoke Show got canceled, and Scarlett Bordeaux faced off with Rohit Raju of the Desi Shit Squad.
Yeah, this sucked. This shouldn't have been on the pay-per-view at all. This is where you give that extra 5 minutes to the opener and, let them have a 10-minute match instead of a 5-minute match. Or you spread this around and give it to a couple of the matches we're about to talk about. Just an unnecessary match, honestly.
Yeah, this is the stuff you run on Impact. Don't add it to the pay-per-view. And again, I actually said in my review that I really wish that time would have been added to the opener because those guys were really talented and they felt really shorted on time. And I think the match would have been a lot better if they could have slowed down just a hair. Because you give 6 guys 6 minutes. Or not even. What do you expect them to do? They're not going to grab a fucking chin lock and ground the action right away. You need to go out there and, for lack of a better term, get your shit in because they're not giving you any more time. So, yeah, I wish that would have went to the opener. We really didn't need that match. And, yeah, it was not good. The Desi Hit Squad is just such a a waste of space. And unfortunately, they're around to keep the 76 people happy because the India money is pretty much the only big infusion of cash they get each year still. But what are you going to do?
They're waiting for Jinder Mahal to get released.
Well, they have Mahabali Shera coming back since WWE signed him for like a month and then released him.
You know, if WWE is releasing you and you fill a market need for them, there's got to be some type of an issue there.
Yeah. So our next match was the Rascals versus Moose and the North. Your thoughts?
This match was great. I love this match. I think it went like 9-10 minutes, and it felt like it probably could have, it deserved more time, but because it was so short, kind of like the opener, and they were able to pack so much into that short amount of time, it just made the match come off just way better as a whole. The Rascals were flying around doing all their fun stuff. Moose is really good as a base. That's another guy who feels kind of cold because this time last year, like, he was challenging for the world title, and now he's just in kind of a 6-man tag team match with the Rascals. But I enjoyed the build for this. Actually, it was kind of campy, but it worked overall. I think the Rascals as a group are kind of a fun little group that they're something a little bit different. It's very That 70s Show, but it's cool. It's different. They can obviously go in the ring. The North are fine. I'm not like a huge Ethan Page fan or anything like that, but they did their part. But overall, like, this match was just great.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. A lot of fun, packed in the action well. Moose in the North pick up the big win, and it'll be interesting to see if that association kind of carries on into the next TV tapings and such. See if Moose has some backup there with the new tag team. But yeah, I thought again. I think the most important thing is like it didn't obviously feel long. It didn't go too long, but it was just a lot of fun, and it was the first really good thing on the show. I felt so that was good, and we moved on to the Knockouts title match. Taya Valkyrie versus Jordynne Grace. Your thoughts?
Another match that maybe could have used that time that Scarlett Bordeaux got. We both talked about it in the preview where it would have been cool if Jordynne Grace had won this match. Taya is just kind of, I'm just not that into her. To use I guess that's a 90s movie reference. She's fine. I don't know. Not the biggest Taya Valkyrie fan. The match was good. I didn't have an issue with it. The finish was, maybe it was just the disappointment that Taya actually won. We'll see where it goes with her. Spoiler alert, now that Johnny Impact is not champion, maybe they can do kind of something different with these two, with, hey, you know, she's got the title, but you don't. So we'll kind of see what happens. I hope they don't miss the boat on Jordynne Grace because she's really good, and I know they like Taya. They have seemingly big plans for Taya, but they can't cast aside Jordynne Grace to continue to boost Taya in my mind.
Yeah, I thought the match was good. Went a smidge over 9 minutes. I thought the end was a little flat myself. It's like they're fighting. Taya hits a headbutt. Jordynne Grace fires back, and then all of a sudden Taya hits her finish, and that was it.
Yeah, it was very like out of nowhere and sudden. Like, not that I'm mad at kind of these quick kind of flash knockout finishes, but when you do that stuff, you can't be surprised if people are just kind of like, oh, that was, you know, they don't react accordingly, because that's not always what you expect in wrestling matches.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. I thought the layout was smart with the work of the arm on Jordynne Grace. And I thought Jordynne Grace sold very well during the match. And yeah, good match. You know, pay-per-view again, it didn't start badly. It just I felt it started a little slow the first two matches, and it started turning around. And then we moved on to the X Division title OVE rules match with champion Rich Swann defending against Sami Callihan. And while Sami got his wish of the OVE rules, they did make it very clear that Impact Management would not allow anyone from OVE at ringside, and if they got involved, they would quote-unquote be fired, which I did like because it's one thing when you do kind of the no rules match, but when you do it just so like 5 guys can run in and do a bunch of shit, I didn't want that. So thankfully we didn't get that because they actually kind of thought it out. They gave him his wish, but there was a caveat to it. I thought it was a very good, bordering on great match. They got just over 16 minutes, plenty of time to work, weapons-filled brawl, and I kind of thought that the whole story was, and this was told in the build, Sami wanted Rich to join OVE. He refused. And then with this match, Sami kind of made Rich Swann go and cross a line that he hadn't been willing to cross before. He had to play Sami's game, and he gladly crossed the line and ended up retaining the title. Very good stuff.
The overall story, just the build, and then in this match was really well laid out and really, really well executed. Like you said, Callihan wanted Swann to join OVE. He didn't do it. Callihan maybe thought like, oh, well, he's not ready to go that far. Let me try to beat that into him. Let me push him, all this stuff. Let me push for this OVE rules match because he's not ready to do this stuff. He's not OVE. And then Swann comes out here and he's like, you know what? I'm not joining OVE on your terms, but you have pushed me far enough to where I will beat you at your own game, and I will cross this line because you have pulled this out of me, but I'm only doing it not to appease you. I'm only doing it to beat you. And I thought this was all just really well done in this match. And both guys looked better because of it. Legos are the new tax, I guess. So that's cool. And then Swann winning is fine. As the match progressed, I was actually kind of pulling for Callihan because I thought an X Division champion who wants to wrestle sort of a hardcore style matches would have been something new and different. You think of X Division, you think of mainly flippy stuff and whatnot, but you get an X Division champion who's like, yeah, this is going to be a no DQ hardcore match now. And it's like, oh, that's something new. But they went with Swann, and I don't have an issue with Swann. I assume he moves on to face Johnny Impact next because Impact still has the X Division thing from United We Stand, assuming they pay attention to that. So overall, again, like this whole story, and then this match and the story in this match was all just, it came off really well.
Yeah, and again, that's the advantage of when you don't overly complicate things, you tell a good story, you get people invested, and then you deliver on it with your match, and the stipulation and everything made sense. That's the most important part, and then you had 2 guys go out there and deliver. And again, you're not overthinking it. You're not reinventing the wheel. I thought it was very good, bordering on a great match. But just the whole package with the story and everything, you're paying off the story. And like you said, we'll probably see Johnny Impact as the next challenger. Hopefully they don't forget about that. They've been pretty good about not forgetting about things like that. If this was, Impact in 2012, I'd say there was no chance they'd remember that. But, backstage, Tessa Blanchard was cutting a promo on her match with Gail Kim, and Tully Blanchard arrived. He was all fired up and gave a big pep talk to his daughter, and they hugged, and she gave him she had the big doe eyes, and thank you, Daddy. It came off really great because, Tessa's all serious and fired up, and, her daddy shows up, and, at the end of the day, she's a girl that just wants to impress her father. And that's what she did here. We had
Tessa Blanchard versus Gail Kim. And to me, this was exactly what I wanted. And this is the kind of thing that you harped on before United We Stand. Tessa Blanchard is someone they've invested a lot of time and effort into. She's someone that they're pushing as the top women's star and one of the overall top stars in the company. You don't fuck around with Joey Ryan and his dick shit. Okay? You put her in matches like this. Her and Gail Kim, they get 13 minutes. I thought they had a great match. Gail Kim didn't miss a beat. She looked great, was in good shape. Tessa put in a dominating, very composed performance on her way to picking up what is the biggest win of her career, her biggest win in Impact. It's a huge signature win. And most importantly, there was no tomfuckery. There was no stupid shit. She beat Gail Kim clean as a sheet, made her tap out.
I love this match from again start to finish. Like everything about this match was really, really, really strong. Gail Kim still can go, and Tessa. I mean, I'm not saying Tessa is the top women's worker in the world right now. There are a lot of good women's workers in the world. Tessa is right there with them. Like if you want to say Tessa is as good as Charlotte or Becky or Sasha or any of these other women, like there's no argument to be made to me. Like she is right there with him. She's so good. From everything from her character work to her in-ring ability is just really good. And yeah, like we talked about before United Stand, this is who Tessa Blanchard should be. She shouldn't be grabbing Joey Ryan's penis. She should be kicking the shit out of people, and she kicked the shit out of Gail Kim here. Gail Kim had, she fought back and she had her hope spots and everything. And Tessa just seemed annoyed by those hope spots more than anything else. Like she was just annoyed and angry and like, all right, if you think you can hang with me, I'm just going to kick the shit out of you even more. Tessa wins. Like on paper, that would have seemingly been the right call and the easy call and the like no-brainer call. Like, yeah, of course Tessa's going to win. But like you said last week, Impact/TNA has just always had this infatuation with Gail Kim. And like if they had her win here, it would have just been like, yeah, well, they love this girl, and so of course they're going to have her win and have her get this big send-off with this big victory over their top female star. But Tessa winning was the correct call. The post-match was like this. I had more of an issue with than Aldis and Skrull, of them embracing and everything. If it's done to like, if this is a Tessa Blanchard babyface turn, then okay, it makes sense then, because now Taya is a heel, and like where else is Tessa gonna go outside of the title? I guess she has some revenge matches she can do, but it seems like they're going back to Taya and Tessa, except now the dynamics have changed. So if this is a babyface turn for Tessa, okay, I get that moment after the match. If this was just a I respect you kind of thing, thank you for giving me this match. Again, I don't have like I said with the UFC stuff, like I don't have an issue with it because you see it all the time in UFC. It just, based on the feud that they had, it just doesn't make as much sense to me.
Yeah, it honestly didn't bother me. I think the cool thing is not only was this a really well done passing of the torch moment, but Gail Kim's previous last match wasn't good. It was like a multi-person match, and I don't remember much from it, but I just, she won the title and then had to vacate the title because she was retiring and stuff. But this was not only a great passing of the torch moment, but it was the right way for her to get the send-off. She puts over Tessa. She gets to go out on a great match. And, for all the stuff she did for TNA and Impact over the years, she did deserve that. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the send-off. The whole embracing and then face-to-face thing. Like a handshake would have been okay with me, and then you let Gail Kim have her moment. If they using this as a Tessa babyface turn, it makes a whole lot more sense. If it was just let's embrace, let's have it'd be something I'd complain about with WWE as well, is creating moments. Like I don't need you to create moments. Like you can create the moment in and of itself just by a handshake, and Gail Kim still gets her send off. You don't need to overdo it with the embrace and with the just beating it in. This is the passing of the torch. So we'll see where it goes. If it's a babyface turn, it makes more sense. If it's just creating a moment, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of Tessa Blanchard, because like I said, they do it all the time in the UFC, and like it doesn't make anybody less of a star because they do it. And like it's something that happens in real fighting. So sure, why can't it happen in fake fighting as well? It's just, I don't know. It was a little bit just unnecessary, how much they did it based on just the story that they had.
Yeah. I thought it was a great match, and it was pretty much everything I hoped it would be. Again, it wasn't overbooked. It was just a great professional wrestling match. And again, Tessa picks up her huge win, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go with her next. Speaking of next, they kind of flipped the script on things. They did the Impact World Title match next. Impact World Champion Johnny Impact defending against Cage with Lance Storm as the special referee. Cage came into the match banged up with a back injury. And, it's something I've talked about before with him. I really worry about him because he's a big, giant, jacked up dude. And he does a lot of shit that a man his size shouldn't do. And that's not a bad thing. But when you're carrying that much muscle mass, I don't know if you've noticed, but over the last year or so, this dude is always wearing like the tape on his shoulder. He has a wrap on his thigh. He wears tape on his back. And it's like, I really worry about him breaking down. And unfortunately, during this match, he got hurt. Legit hurt. He ended up in the emergency room last night after the match. And it basically stemmed from, they did a Spanish fly spot off the ramp to the floor. And while it's not like a 20-foot drop or anything, Cage is a legit like 270-pound dude taking a flat back bump on the floor with another dude on top of him. It's not exactly like the most comfortable and safest bump. I thought the match started off really well. It was kind of shock and awe with Cage just running wild early, using his power game, hitting Germans, F5s, face busters, buckle bombs, deadlift superplexes and shit. And they were off to a really good start. I almost thought that they were going to do like a kind of like a Seth Rollins Brock, like an under 3 minutes thing, because like they moved it to the co-main event and he was just running wild. And then they did that spot on the outside, and they kind of came back into a regular match, and things slowed. Cage was laboring a bit. They were talking a lot, you could tell, kind of setting things up. Cage got busted open. It wasn't bad. It never felt bad, but it definitely started really hot. And then after that Spanish fly spot, and then a little bit of overbooking down the stretch, just kind of really fell off. Cage wins the title in 13 minutes, and Johnny Impact will go to the X Division or whatever, and we will see what is up with Cage in terms of his overall injury status.
This match sucked. It was fine early when Brian Cage was running wild and everything. After the Spanish fly spot where we found out he screwed up his back, and then it really fell off a cliff. And we talked about Brian Cage's Impact run. You can just see how much the editing in Lucha Underground, the favors it did for this guy, because he's not a guy with that muscle mass and with the pace that he goes. He's not a guy who can just go for a long time. Like, this match wasn't even that long, but it just feels like in Impact, like he gets blown up so quickly. Like the last match he had against Johnny Impact, I didn't really care for that match either, because just Brian Cage just gets blown up so quickly. And I understand the back injury played an issue into this, but this is a thing of, work to your strengths here. If you have a back injury, don't be fucking doing Spanish flies to the floor. Don't be working this kind of style and these longer matches and everything. Just tone it down a little bit, either in the build-up, where, Brian Cage is a guy who wrestles for multiple promotions. Like, he's wrestling every single weekend. Like, take some of those nights off if you know you have this match coming up and you need to heal up. Or, again, don't do this spot to where you're putting your back in even more danger if you're banged up coming into this match. The ending of this was just so bad. Like the ref bump was terrible. The Taya's interference, the belt shots, Johnny Impact Starship Pain, which didn't even connect. The drill claw, which Cage could barely lift him, and it's just the whole finish just came off so sloppy and just a complete mess. I did not like this match at all. These two just don't seem to. It would seem like they, on style, would be a good fit for one another, because Johnny Impact likes to fly around. Cage has a strong base where he can catch. Cage also can keep up with the flying around stuff and do some athletic spots. Like, both these guys are super athletic guys, and there is like a size difference to where it looks even more impressive. And in their two big matches, it hasn't clicked at all. And it just, like, the finish on both of these matches with these two guys have just come off so bad. Like, the closing stretch of both of these matches has just been so bad. And okay, the layout is an issue, but the performances are also an issue. If Impact did one thing right in this, it's that it wasn't the main event. Because if this was the main event, it would have just been another flat ending to this show. At least they realized that maybe we shouldn't main event with this match. And I don't know if that call was made because of their last match, or because, all right, Full Metal Mayhem is a better match. Even Tessa and Gail Kim is a better match. Whatever reason it was that they made the call, it was a smart call. I didn't care for this match. Brian Cage winning is, we'll see with his back injury how it's gonna go for him. I guess they have tapings probably tonight. That's when they usually do their tapings after.
Yeah, they tape tonight and at the Rebel again, and then they have tapings this weekend at the old ECW arena.
Okay, so yeah, we'll know real quickly what they're gonna do with Brian Cage's back injury and how he can work and everything. So we'll see with this title run. We'll talk about, I guess, who his next challenger is going to be here in a second, but we'll see with this title run. I told you I'm not a big Brian Cage and Impact fan, and this match, this title victory, wasn't a great start to his run in my estimation.
Yes, and post-match, and this had been rumored for a while, Big Mike Elgin made his Impact debut, went face-to-face with Cage, let him know he wants the title. He attacked him, hit a back fist, and then because, Cage was feeling so good, he went ahead and hit the Elgin bomb on him, which had to fucking suck.
They couldn't call an audible here and just been like, after the back fist, hey, my back is kind of fucked up. Maybe don't power bomb me and, let's just get out of here. But, this is like where you've got to be just smarter. If your back is screwed up, don't take this power bomb on top of everything else. Just call the audible and say, we're not going to do that. Like, lay me out with just the back fist. Lay me out where you're dropping me, you're not dropping me, period. Like, just do the back fist. Don't do like some type of flapjack or any other move where you're landing on your stomach and face, because like that still reverberates throughout your body. Like, hit the back fist. He's laid out. He just had this grueling match. That's that. Just be smarter if you have these injuries.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to hear anybody saying like, "Oh, we're being soft about this." No, the motherfucker could barely walk after this and had to be taken to the emergency room.
He's your world champion too.
Yeah.
Like, this is the guy you're building your company around. You don't need your world champion hurt.
Yeah, and like you said, they easily could have done, and again, like if Cage didn't say anything to him, obviously Elgin, might not have known, but like you could have done the back fist. Cage was bleeding from the match. You do the back fist, just let Elgin take mount, beat on him a little bit, make him bleed a little more, stand tall with the title. You sent a message. So yeah, I wish they would have kind of rethought that. And again, hopefully Cage is not hurt too bad, but he spent the night in the emergency room, and we will see what happens. They announced that Slammiversary will take place July 7th in Texas, which is the day after the G1 starts in Texas. So that will be a full and busy wrestling weekend.
They're piggybacking off of the G1, and Raw is in Dallas that Monday too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's because WWE found out about the G1 and tried to fuck them over, and that's why they're going to run MSG before the AAA show.
Yeah,
they're it's classic Vince, man.
It's his world. We're just living in it and covering it. I find it funny that Impact is like, hey, all these New Japan people are going to be here. Let's run Dallas. They didn't. This is another thing where, like, I kind of complained about. They didn't have a price point for Impact Plus. Like, they didn't even have an arena for this show. It's in Dallas, somewhere in Dallas. We know fans are going to be in Dallas for the G1. So if you're there, we'll figure out the arena later. I don't know. It just didn't seem like there was I'm sure there was the foresight to. I'm sure they had the arena booked. I would assume so, but why aren't you announcing the arena in this? Like, it's not like it's that far away. It's 2 months away. Like, announce the arena, announce when tickets go on sale. It's just Dallas. Everyone show up to Dallas.
Yeah, it did feel really odd that they didn't have a venue and on sale date announced. It was just like, coming to Dallas, Slammiversary, July 7th.
The arena is New Japan's. The arena is New Japan's back.
Yes, but yeah. So we'll see what goes on there. And then the main event was the Impact Tag Team Title Full Metal Mayhem match. Champions the Lucha Bros versus LAX.
Great match, as expected. Much like the Skrull and all this match, like this went 21 minutes according to your notes, and it didn't feel like it was that long, and it probably even should have been longer. Like they packed in a lot of action to everything. Fucking Phoenix nearly killed himself. I do not know how that man is alive after the Spanish fly through the table.
Dude, he pulled a Christopher Daniels on Nitro. I mean, Jesus. He for those that missed it, okay, they had a table set up on the ramp, and Phoenix ends up walking the top rope to cut off Ortiz, grabs him, and goes to Spanish fly him through the table. Well, he hits the Spanish fly kind of halfway, sends Ortiz through the table, doesn't rotate enough, and just fucking falls on the top of his head. It was scary as shit. It's like how he did not get hurt badly. But in case you don't know the Christopher Daniels reference, Christopher Daniels and Mike Modest had a tryout match live on Nitro one time.
and Christopher Daniels went to do like the run up, like the big run in Moon Song, and he slipped and he tried to rotate over and fucking posted on top of his head and lost feeling in his arms and shit, and it was just scary as hell. So that's kind of what Phoenix did here. Very scary spot. I haven't heard anything, so it sounds like he's thankfully okay. But yeah, very scary spot.
Phoenix is going to kill himself one of these days with the spots that he takes. Because he got hurt in like a Chicago show or something, an AAW show. It just this man is nuts. God bless him for it. Sometimes you got to tone it down a little bit. Not to say that this was a Spanish Flies just did not work out on this show. Maybe tone that move down. Brian Cage ends up with a back injury. Phoenix, thank God he's not paralyzed after the way he landed. Yeah, just Spanish Flies. Knock that shit off unless you're Paul Burchill, I guess.
Yeah, I can see Don Callis at the talent meeting today. All right, pretty much everything's okay. But if one of you motherfuckers does a Spanish Fly, you're gone.
These guys are just, not a good result on that move. Overall, just a great match. A lot of action, a lot of cool spots. LAX winning, not a big surprise. Like we talked about in the preview, it seems like Penta and Phoenix are gonna be pretty much AEW bound after this, instead of working with a bunch of different promotions. Seems like they're going to pretty much just stay with AEW. I mean, you're not facing the Young Bucks on their first show unless you're kind of big parts of their show. And I mean, Penta got Kenny Omega at All In. Phoenix was in the main event of that show. So they clearly have big plans for these guys, and I'm sure they're paying better than Impact. And I mean, they just didn't have anything left to do in Impact, I guess. So LAX winning, nothing wrong with that. It seemed pretty like almost an obvious call. I don't know where LAX goes after this. Who are the tag teams in Impact? I guess they have the North now, and their association. Yeah, the Rascals are there, but I don't know.
They're gonna have to rebuild the tag division, especially if they're losing the Lucha Bros. And according to Big Dave Meltzer on this morning's Wrestling is Over radio, basically the end where they squashed the beef and did the big hug was kind of like the Lucha Brothers curtain call, because by all reports they're going to be exclusive to AEW in the US, and which means they will also be finishing up with MLW, which MLW has reportedly been expecting. So yeah, the finish makes sense when you take that into consideration. But yeah, absolutely great main event. Just everybody working hard, great performances. Thankfully, nobody died, but it was definitely the smart move to move this to the main event and close the show on an extremely strong note.
Yeah, much better decision to have this in the main event. I even think that Tessa and Gail could have had a main event spot. I'd be very surprised if, because the Lucha Bros are gone now and LAX doesn't have like super credible challengers. And then, I mean, you've got Brian Cage as your champion. I don't know. I guess Michael Elgin is obviously his next challenger there. Like, that's fine. Like, looking ahead towards Slammiversary, it almost seems like the women are going to headline that show, because Tessa is probably the hottest star in the company right now. Taya she's had a good reign with the title. That's a match that's a story that is easy to build because of their history. And you also have, you can also throw in Jordan Grace in there if you want and make it a three-way match. So they've got time, obviously, between now and July, like plenty of time to make things hotter. Fucking Van Dam's coming back. I'm sure he'll want to headline, or they can always put him in a headlining spot. Sooner rather than later, it just feels like the women need to headline a show, and not because it's, you know, a piggyback off WWE thing or anything like that. It's truthfully because they've been the strongest point of a lot of these shows, and I truthfully think that Tessa Blanchard is the top star in this company.
She certainly felt like it after tonight. I mean, you could make an argument. Her, LAX are easily the top acts, and yeah. So I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. I think there is a definite possibility if they can build the right feud. And again, I think that's why the LAX main event here worked again. Much like Sammy and Rich Swann and Gail and Tessa, you told good stories going in. You booked matches that made sense. You delivered matches that were very good, simple stories with strong work, bordering on great and even very good, even great in a lot of aspects. And they delivered. They culminated those stories. And again, keeping it simple, strong builds, thing that makes sense. And I greatly appreciate that. So that was a lot of the strength of those matches that really succeeded on the show.
It was definitely the right call to have LAX headline this show. It was just a much better, you know, it was a much better match than Cage and Impact. Even the story was better. I'm glad they made that call. And yeah, well, it was another strong show from Impact. We've seen this before from them, and like they're getting a lot of online praise this morning. Well deserved. If you put on a strong show, you should, you know, you should get praise for putting on a strong show. They really just fail to capitalize on anything with their television. And I don't even think their television is like terrible or anything like that. They're a promotion just without a lot of momentum and heat right now. Even after these good shows, it's, you know, they're gonna lose the Lucha Brothers. This was probably their last show, so you're losing one of your top acts right there. Who knows with Brian Cage how banged up he is? Like that's your world champion. Michael Elgin he's a name. You know, he's got some New Japan credibility on him. I don't know about a lot, but there is certainly a market of the online, what's the word I'm looking for?
There's definitely a negative stigma around
yes, it. Yeah. There's a corner of the online market. That's the phrasing I was looking for, and I screwed it up. There's a corner of the online market that doesn't like Michael Elgin for reasons that are totally understandable and legitimate. So there could be some backlash there. You know, you're bringing back Rob Van Dam, which is, he's a name, but he's also older, and I mean, based on his match at United We Stand, you know, how much can he really give in the ring at this point? It's like they have these really great banger shows. They have good storylines for the most part. They have good talent, but they're on fucking a channel no one gets, or they're on Twitch, and like, fine, they're on it Fridays at 10 o'clock. Like, who the fuck is watching wrestling at Fridays at 10 o'clock?
Me.
Their television tapings are always just cold as ice. Like, you try to find reports and photos on Twitter, and like no one has anything on the, like, you get more out of searching for photos from a WWE live event than you do from a Impact television taping. Like, everything about this company just is so cold from an online perspective. And I don't even think they do a bad job with a lot of that stuff. Like, you compare them to ROH, and like, at least they're tweeting all the time. You go to their YouTube channel, there's a lot of good stuff on their YouTube channel. ROH fucking has nothing on their YouTube channel. But Impact, for some reason, like, feels colder than ROH from just a business perspective. And I mean, they're not, but their pay-per-views are really good, and that'll earn them praise. I really don't want to see just overreactions to this event of, oh, Impact is back, or you should start paying attention to Impact now because you're gonna miss out. Like, it's a good show. You are missing some good stuff. If you missed this pay-per-view, you missed a really good pay-per-view. Let's not go over the top with, Impact is ready to challenge everybody again just because they had another good show. We've seen this before. We saw this all throughout last year. They had really great events. Like, this is just their MO at this point. A good television product, a great pay-per-view product, but it just isn't translating to any type of business.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. A lot of that is that shitty TV deal they had to take with Pursuit because Anthem owns part of it, and it's like, yeah, it's just there is no buzz. It's like their TV at worst is solid, every week. Sometimes it's good. The pay-per-views are good to great, and it's just really unfortunate. And like you said, the social media stuff is really good thanks to the good brother Garrett, because he's done a great job with that. And it's just they need something. They need a better TV deal. They need to get attention. And like some of the worst stuff that happens is, like you were mentioning, don't overblow a good show. Don't oversell it. And because like I had people tell, oh, I watched the WrestleMania weekend NXT show and this was just as good as that. And it's like, listen. Impact Rebellion was a very good show. I enjoyed it. They did a lot right. They told good stories. Had some great matches. But the NXT TakeOver WrestleMania thing from New York was like an all-time great fucking show. Like in the history of the fucking universe. So don't overpraise it, because and I think that comes from years of people being upset because they liked TNA and they liked Impact and everybody shit on it and was saying it was going to die. And so now they have to overcompensate. And I understand you're a fan. You want your company to do good. You love the company. And that's great, but have some perspective. It's not always great. It's not always good. Sometimes things are off. But the pay-per-view is good. If you want to suggest it to somebody who hasn't watched Impact. Somebody asked me in my comment section, is Impact worth checking out? I said, yeah. I'm like, the TV is at worst solid. I enjoy it more than Raw for sure. And the pay-per-views are good to very good. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving them a chance. But have some perspective. Don't overblow it. Because when you do that, and if it doesn't deliver, everybody's going to go, oh, you're fucking full of shit. The show sucks. Because you oversold it. Don't do that. But yeah, I want the company to do well, but I'm a bit concerned with the Cage injury, the Lucha Brothers seemingly leaving, because that is the report. And hopefully Willie Mack is staying, and they don't lose him, because I think he's a good asset. And yeah, it's just a really weird time for them, and I feel bad for the company because they do a lot of good things. And like I said, good stories leading into the pay-per-view, good follow-up. They delivered on it, and I just don't feel like enough people are going to talk about it and give them praise. And I'm kind of scared to see what the buy rate is even for the show, because again, they don't have a lot of penetration with the TV stuff. Yes, they're on Twitch, but I mean, it's Twitch. Not everybody wants to watch Twitch. And again, you're charging $40 for a pay-per-view in an era where a lot of people are getting their wrestling for $10 here and
there. That's the other thing is, like, these shows are $40 on Fight TV, or I don't even know if they're on traditional pay-per-view.
They are.
Okay, well, there you go. So it's just like you're paying $40 for this event, and I'm not saying this event wasn't worth $40. It was a very strong show, and in the old days, like, yeah, it was certainly worth $40. That's not the market anymore. Like, any big show nowadays just doesn't cost that much. Double or Nothing is going to be an interesting thing, and AEW in general will be interesting because they're probably gonna have to sort of be in that same boat of we're gonna, pay $40 for this pay-per-view. And nowadays where you can get the network for $9.99, where you can get New Japan World for $9.99, Honor Club, however much that costs. How much does that cost you, Larry, for the year to get all those events?
I don't know. Ashish bought the big yearly thing because if you would just buy their 4 pay-per-views at $40, that's $160, and I think like the yearly thing is like 120, and then you get all the pay-per-views as well as all the streaming events. So a definite money saver in that aspect.
Yeah, so if it's 120, that's essentially $10 a month. So and you're getting all this other stuff. Like, you're not only getting like these live events, you're getting all this, you're getting all the video on demand stuff that comes with it as well. So and then you got a company like Impact, like they have their own now Impact Plus, and they still want $40 on top of that every month for their pay-per-views. Like the same thing with AEW. If they're going to do these $40 pay-per-views, it'll work for, like, it worked for All In, obviously. It'll work for Double or Nothing. After that, it might start just to get a little bit pricey for people who are just so used to only spending. I mean, we just said you can get WWE / every single one of their brands, New Japan and ROH, all their events,
for $30.
For $30, all their video on demand stuff, that's just $30. Or you can pay $40 for literally one event. And it's a tough sell for people if you're doing it. I mean, Impact only does it like quarterly or once every 2 months or something. And that's a tough sell. For AEW, it's going to kind of run into the same thing. And AEW might have a completely different plan, and they seem like they're smart enough to where they will have a different and a better plan, especially once they get onto television. But for right now, it's like this is an issue plaguing, speaking specifically for Impact, this is an issue plaguing Impact. Joey Janela said it, like, on Fight TV, his shows outdraw the Impact shows. And part of that is a credit to Janela and just the buzz he has built up. The other part of that is I don't think the Janela pay-per-views cost $40. Like, they're only like $20 or $30, and people are more willing to spend less money, obviously, if the shows are just as good. But you don't see, like, GCW has this great show. No one's going over the top with all those great praise of like, oh, pay attention to GCW. Like, no, they're in their lane. They do what they do, and like, people are happy with that. Impact almost feels the same way right now. Like, they're in their lane. They do what they do. Let's not go over the top and think that they're going to do anything extravagant in the near future, because they haven't proven that they can. And any company that's on the Pursuit channel probably just isn't going too far right now.
Yeah, and again, it's unfortunate. I hope that things can change. I hope that they can keep delivering these good pay-per-views and solid TV. But there's a lot of questions coming out of last night's show, because again, if Cage is seriously injured, if you're losing the Lucha Brothers, if you're possibly losing Willie Mack, it's just that's for a company that doesn't exactly have a huge roster anyway. They focus on a certain amount of guys and everything. It could be problematic. So we will see what happens. A lot of interesting takes coming out of last night's show, but again, a very good show. If you have the time, check it out. Gail Kim and Tessa was great. Full Metal Mayhem was great. Sammy versus Rich Swann, very good to great. So a lot of stuff that did really well. So we'll see what happens going forward. I would like to thank everybody that listened. I'd like to thank Jeremy for joining me. Again, you can follow the 411 on Wrestling Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and the 411 site. Please make sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, share us on social media. Jeremy and I will be back later this week talking New Japan Hino Kuni, and also previewing the upcoming Wrestling Dontaku events for the weekend. So thanks for listening and happy wrestling, everybody.